Hey everybody, welcome back to Ravenstead. It's time for another build. Going to continue on with another sci-fi build. We did the Gothic Tower in the last one. If you haven't seen that, you might want to check that out. This is going to be a landing pad, a fairly small one, something to go next to the tower, and we'll continue to spiral out from that central tower. And I envision things in this future city getting grungier and darker as we spiral out. So just adding in a little bit of surface detail on this foam, anything to break up those broad flat surfaces. So I'm just using a little sculpting tool there. It's got a tiny little ball end and just scribing in some lines. So once this thing is blacked out and then dry brushed, all those details will kind of pop out. So I wanted to build this piece without any greeble, so this is all foam construction. I'm being super light with this ball of aluminum foil. I just wanted to give it just the barest texture. I'm kind of going for a concrete look, so I'm hardly even touching that, keeping it super light. So I'm going to glue on the top pad here, and then I had to come up with a way of getting miniatures from the bottom to the top. It's always a challenge trying to build stairways or ladders when you want to cover multiple levels. So I put in this pillar, and then I have these smaller squares of foam that I'll make into kind of like stair pads. I kind of imagine these being hydraulic, so it's not like a person is jumping 3 feet at a time. You step on the bottom pad, it goes up. Then you step on the next one and the next one until you're up to the top. So it's implied technology. It was pretty fiddly too. Some of you guys know that I'm a blacksmith, so my hands do shake quite a bit. I tried to paint a miniature for this build. I'll show you that later on. I kind of did some weird Zenithal slap chop hybrid technique, and it didn't work out that great, so I think I'm going to try again. But for my first foray into modern miniature painting, it wasn't too bad, I guess. There's a lot of people out there with a lot of talent, so there's plenty of videos to learn from. We'll get there. That middle pad was a little wiggly, so I just threw another piece in there. Just a little more interest visually. I think it works. Kind of messes up my hydraulic pad idea, so maybe just the top and the bottom pad move. Who knows? Make up a story that works for your terrain. I do the same thing. So I went on a little vacation. I was gone for a little while, so it's nice to be back to the work table. One evening I did see in St. Augustine, Florida, while we were listening to a live band, what I thought was an enormous rat ended up being a baby possum running by a concrete wall right next to our table. So that kind of gave me some inspiration for this build, believe it or not. So I left plenty of little narrow areas for our critters to run through. Big street rats in this city. So we're going to black this out with a little bit of black acrylic paint mixed with Mod Podge, just your standard black bomb. And that'll help to stiffen things up a little bit, protects the foam, and also gives us our dark undercolor for shadows. So I'll get that all coated out, and then we'll get to doing some dry brushing. I ended up putting 2 coats on here, but I'm not going to bore you with that. A little bit of that pink was shining through. I definitely don't want that. So first dry brush going on is slate gray. It's a really dark gray. You can see it better when I kind of tilt the piece to the light. And that's just going to go over all the surfaces. I didn't worry too much about way up underneath in those little crevices. I want to preserve those shadows for our little baby possum rats to run around. This is a medium gray. It's a craft paint. Dolphin gray is the name of the color. And I'm just using a little makeup brush here, a blending brush. They work really well for dry brushing on paints. So you can really see those details starting to come out. And this is an even lighter color. Getting ready to go on now. This one's called Parchment. So it's almost like a light beige. Almost white. So I like to hit all the edges and then give myself some texture here. I think the brush strokes ended up looking kind of cool. They really blend in later on when I start putting washes on this piece to kind of grunge it down, but it really makes all the shadows kind of pop out. And you can be pretty aggressive with this. I mean, it looks pretty washed out and white, but once you put your black or brown washes on there, it really mutes down. There we go. Shadows established, highlights established. I wanted to go for kind of a ring of blue light around this launch pad, landing pad. You can see a little shaky Pete there. I did a lot of hammering that morning, so my hands were shaking, but you know what? Just drive on. It's no big deal. Just keep your hand moving. So I'll put this light blue paint around this little border here. I did kind of touch those lines a couple of times, but that's no big deal because once the black wash goes on, it'll kind of fill in and reestablish those lines around there. Little terracotta red on the center of each pad. It's pretty stark right now, and again, the magic of washes will really help pull all this together. I kind of wanted to go for a glow effect on that blue, like it was a ring of light. So I lightened up my my blue paint, got the brush super dry, and then just kind of swirled that around the edges. It looked pretty cool, I think, before the washes, and it just really muted out. And in the final pictures, when I spin this for you so you can get a closer look, in person it's, I guess you can kind of see the light effect, but on camera it's just kind of dull. But that'd be a good spot for some like little LED ribbon lights or something like that. We'll get there. We're going to need neon in this city at some point. So this is a black wash, a mixture of black acrylic ink and water. I do 16 parts water to 1 part ink, and then I add a little bit of jet dry in there, and that kind of breaks down the bubbles, gets it to flow on. So once that's all done, I'll put a little bit of this Vallejo rust wash on here. I use a wet on wet technique for my washes. I make sure all the underpainting is dry because the washes will rehydrate that acrylic paint if it's not cured. But the washes I put on wet, so they kind of blend in and diffuse. It gives it a pretty decent look. So not getting too carried away. I just wanted a little rust stain here and there. This was my attempt to reestablish that glow effect. It did okay. It ended up more looking like it was a painted stripe that just kind of wore out. But, I mean, that kind of plays too. There we go. I decided to just dab a little bit here and there. Just get creative. See what looks good to your eye. I mean, ultimately, you could just go over this thing again with black paint and do it all over again if you needed to. So here it is, the launch pad. And I'll show it with the tower as well. All those lines really kind of pop out. Hey, leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you. It's great getting feedback from y'all. Really appreciate it. If you have any suggestions for another build, I think I'm going to do a fantasy build again, and then just kind of go back and forth. Oh, there's my miniature. Oof. He's okay, I guess. We'll try again. There it is with the tower. I've got it spaced out there 2 inches apart because I'm going to build streets that'll kind of fit in between these scatter terrain builds. I'll show you a few more pictures. Again, thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. I'm going to need a air car or something, a hovercraft, to kind of get the scale. Pretty cool, though. Brace yourselves. Here comes the miniature.